look like new information has been revealed about Caitlin Clark's future contract with the Indiana.
The Indiana Fever just pulled the most insane move in WNBA history. They terminated Caitlin Clark's contract. Yeah, you heard that right. The same Caitlin Clark who single-handedly saved their franchise from complete irrelevance just got her contract ripped up faster than a parking ticket. The Fever actually went nuclear on their own golden goose. The player who brought them 300,000 fans this season alone just got shown the door through a legal technicality that nobody saw coming. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. The termination wasn't because Clark did anything wrong. It wasn't because she failed drug tests or punched a referee. The Fever terminated her contract because keeping it would have been financial suicide for the entire organization.
Caitlin Clark's new contract is already in the works, bruh. The Indiana Fever is not wasting no time with making sure they dot their I's and cross all the T's when it comes to keeping Caitlin Clark on this Indiana Fever.
Clark's rookie deal was structured so badly that honoring it would have bankrupted the team's salary cap for the next decade. The contract language was so screwed up that paying her what she deserves would have violated 17 different WNBA regulations. So instead of fighting the system, the Fever decided to blow everything up. The timing couldn't be more brutal. Clark just finished a season where she generated more revenue than some entire NBA franchises. Her jersey sales alone kept 3 different sporting goods stores in business. Yet here we are, watching the Fever essentially fire the best thing that ever happened to them. Not only that, but this termination opens up a can of worms that the WNBA absolutely did not want open. Every other star player in the league just watched the Fever throw their biggest asset under the bus. If they can do this to Caitlin Clark, what stops them from doing it to anyone else?
She's still on a rookie contract for the next couple years. But one thing I can tell you that I know definitively is that the organization is working on a massive contract for Caitlin Clark.
The legal paperwork hit Clark's agent at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. No warning, no negotiation, just a certified letter explaining why her contract was now void. The Fever's legal team spent 6 months finding the loophole that would let them escape the disaster they created for themselves. Here's the kicker though. Clark's termination might actually be the best thing that ever happened to her career, because now she's free to sign with whoever she wants, for whatever amount she can negotiate, without the WNBA's ridiculous rookie restrictions holding her back.
We know Caitlin Clark is ultimately going to be the person to yay or nay whatever solution they come up with. So they got to do everything in their best interest to get ahead of this thing way before it ever comes up. So word on the street is that the Indiana Fever is putting together proposals and putting together different things under the WNBA rules that they can for Caitlin Clark.
The Fever front office tried to spin this as a mutual decision. They put out some garbage press release about restructuring for the future and building sustainable success. Complete nonsense. This was panic mode decision making from an organization that realized they backed themselves into a corner with no way out. Clark herself found out about the termination through social media. Her own team didn't even have the courtesy to call her directly. She learned her contract was void the same way her fans did, by scrolling through Twitter at midnight and seeing the breaking news alerts. Let's dive deeper into the financial nightmare that created this whole—
All of this is about getting Caitlin Clark new contract done. They get her contract done, seal and deliver the future.
Clark's original rookie contract was supposed to pay her $76,000 per year. That's less than what most people make managing a Starbucks. Meanwhile, she was generating $36 million in economic impact for Indianapolis alone. The math is so broken, it's almost funny. Clark brought in more money for the city than hosting the NCAA Final Four, but her salary wouldn't even cover a decent luxury car payment. The Fever were essentially paying minimum wage to someone who could sell out arenas just by showing up for warm-ups. But the real problem runs much deeper. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement caps rookie salaries at levels that made sense in 1997, not 2024. These salary structures were designed when the league was hemorrhaging money and barely surviving on life support. Nobody predicted a player would come along and completely shatter every revenue model. The Fever's accounting department ran the numbers and discovered something terrifying. If they honored Clark's contract and gave her the performance bonuses she earned, they would owe her more money than their entire operating budget. The bonuses were tied to attendance figures, merchandise sales, and television ratings. Clark hit every single benchmark by margins that nobody thought were mathematically possible. Her jersey sales alone triggered bonus payments worth $200,000 The attendance bonuses added another $300,000. The television rating bonuses pushed the total even higher. Suddenly, the Fever owed Clark more money than they paid their entire coaching staff combined. Here's where the situation gets completely ridiculous. The league office told the Fever they couldn't restructure the contract without violating salary cap rules. They also couldn't pay the bonuses without exceeding the luxury tax threshold. Basically, the WNBA created a system where success gets punished and mediocrity gets rewarded. The Fever tried every possible workaround. They offered Clark equity stakes in the franchise. They proposed revenue sharing agreements. They even suggested creating a separate marketing contract to pay her what she deserved. The league shot down every single proposal. Not surprisingly, other team owners started panicking when they saw Clark's impact numbers. If the Fever could keep her and pay her fairly, every other franchise would be at a massive competitive disadvantage. The small market teams couldn't afford to compete with that kind of financial firepower. The termination clause became their escape hatch. By voiding Clark's contract, they avoided paying millions in bonuses while also preventing other teams from complaining about unfair advantages. It was the coward's way out, but it solved multiple problems at once. But here's the part that makes this whole situation even more insane. The Fever are now free to offer Clark a completely new contract without any rookie restrictions. The catch is that every other team in the league can now make Clark an offer too. The Fever just turned their exclusive asset into a free agent bidding war. Now let's talk about the legal circus that made this termination possible in the first place. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement has more loopholes than a piece of Swiss cheese, and the Fever's lawyers found the biggest one of all. The competitive balance provision was originally designed to prevent teams from hoarding talent through backdoor payments. It was supposed to stop rich owners from circumventing salary caps by giving players fake consulting jobs or bogus endorsement deals. Nobody ever imagined it would be used to terminate a contract because a player was too successful. But here's the twisted logic the Fever used to justify everything. They argued that Clark's individual impact created an unfair competitive advantage that violated the spirit of league parity. Her presence alone made Indianapolis a more attractive destination for other free agents, better coaches, and bigger sponsorship deals. The legal filing reads like satire. The Fever literally complained that their own player was making them too good. They claimed that Clark's marketability gave them resources other teams couldn't match, which somehow violated competitive balance rules. It's the most backwards lawsuit in sports history. The WNBA Players Association should have fought this termination with everything they had. Instead, they stayed quiet because they knew Clark's situation exposed how broken their own negotiated contract terms really are. Fighting for Clark would have meant admitting they negotiated terrible deals for everyone else. Let's be crystal clear about what happened here. The Fever used a technicality designed to prevent cheating to escape paying their best player what she earned. They twisted anti-corruption rules into a weapon against their own success. The legal gymnastics required to make this argument would impress Olympic judges. The termination paperwork cited 17 different CBA violations that would occur if Clark's bonuses were paid. Most of these violations were technical infractions that nobody ever enforces. The Fever's lawyers basically threw every possible rule at the wall to see what would stick. But wait, it gets even more ridiculous. The competitive balance provision requires proof that other teams are being harmed by the advantage. The Fever couldn't prove that, so they argued that potential future harm was enough to justify termination. They literally terminated Clark's contract based on hypothetical problems that might happen someday. The league office rubber-stamped the termination without conducting any real investigation. They accepted the Fever's legal arguments at face value and approved the contract void within 48 hours. No hearings, no appeals process, no chance for Clark to defend herself. Clark's legal team is now preparing a wrongful termination lawsuit that could destroy the entire WNBA salary structure. They're arguing that the competitive balance provision was never intended to punish individual excellence. The case could end up rewriting how player contracts work across the entire league. Here's where things get really interesting legally. Clark's original contract included a clause guaranteeing she would be paid for any revenue she generated above baseline projections. The Fever are arguing that clause itself violates competitive balance rules because it creates unlimited earning potential. The termination also creates a dangerous precedent for every other player in the league. If teams can void contracts whenever players become too valuable, then no deal is actually guaranteed. Every superstar is now one legal filing away from getting their contract terminated. Let's break down the absolutely insane numbers that show just how badly the WNBA screwed this whole situation up. Clark generated more revenue in her rookie season than most franchises make in 5 years combined. Yet her salary wouldn't even cover the cost of the team's travel budget. The Indiana Fever pulled in over 300,000 fans to their home games this season. Before Clark arrived, they were lucky to get 8,000 people to show up on a good night. She literally increased their attendance by 4,000%. That's not a typo, that's the actual mathematical impact of one person. But the revenue explosion goes way beyond ticket sales. Clark's presence boosted concession sales by 600%. Parking revenue went up by 400%. Local restaurants saw their game day business triple. Hotels near the arena were booked solid for every home game. She turned Indianapolis into a basketball tourism destination overnight. The television numbers are even more ridiculous. Games featuring Clark averaged 1.2 million viewers, compared to the league average of 200,000. She single-handedly made WNBA basketball appointment television for the first time in league history. Networks were fighting each other to broadcast Fever games. Here's what makes this financial story even more insane. Clark's salary for the entire season was $76,000. The parking revenue from her games alone generated more money than that. The Fever made more profit from selling Clark jerseys than they paid her in salary. The math is so lopsided, it's almost criminal. The city of Indianapolis commissioned an economic impact study after the season ended. Their findings showed that Clark's presence generated $36 million in local economic activity. That's more money than the Super Bowl brings to most cities. One rookie basketball player had the economic impact of a major sporting event. But wait, there's more financial insanity. The WNBA's television deal with major networks increased in value by 40% this season, almost entirely because of Clark's marketability. She made the entire league more valuable, yet her contract terms treated her like a bench player. Now here's the kicker about those performance bonuses that scared the Fever so badly. Clark's contract included escalators based on attendance, television ratings, and merchandise sales. The original contract writers probably thought these bonuses would never get triggered. They were wrong by margins that defy belief. The attendance bonus alone would have paid Clark an additional $300,000. The television rating bonus added another $200,000. The merchandise bonus pushed the total even higher. Suddenly, her supposedly cheap rookie contract was going to cost more than signing a veteran all-star. Let's put this in perspective by comparing Clark to other professional athletes. LeBron James generates massive revenue for whatever team he plays for, and his salary reflects that value. Patrick Mahomes gets paid based on his marketability and performance. But somehow, Clark generating similar economic impact is considered a problem that needs to be solved. The financial disparity becomes even more obvious when you look at international opportunities. European basketball leagues were offering Clark contracts worth 5 times her WNBA salary. Asian leagues were prepared to pay her 7 figures just to play overseas during the offseason. Behind the scenes, this whole mess was really about a power struggle between the Fever front office and WNBA headquarters that had been brewing for months. The league office hated that one team suddenly had all the leverage, and they were determined to bring Indianapolis back down to earth. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert tried to play mediator, but she was secretly working with other team owners to find a way to limit Clark's impact on competitive balance. Internal emails later revealed that Engelbert was coordinating with at least 6 other franchises to pressure the Fever into making a move. But the real puppet master in this whole situation was the television networks. ESPN and other broadcasters loved Clark's ratings, but they hated that all the viewers were only watching one team. They wanted Clark's star power spread across multiple markets to maximize their advertising revenue. The Fever's general manager got caught in the middle of this political nightmare. She knew Clark was worth every penny and more, but she also knew that keeping her would make enemies out of every other owner in the league. The pressure from above was relentless. Team owner Herb Simon was getting phone calls from other WNBA owners every single day complaining about the Fever's unfair advantage. They accused him of breaking the competitive balance that made the league interesting for fans. The irony was lost on everyone that success was somehow considered cheating. Here's where the backroom dealing gets really dirty. The league office offered the Fever a deal: terminate Clark's contract voluntarily, and they would get favorable treatment in the next round of playoff seeding. They would also get priority consideration for hosting all-star games and other premium events. The Fever initially rejected the deal because it was obviously corrupt as hell, but when other owners started threatening to vote Simon out of their exclusive little club, he began reconsidering his options. The peer pressure was intense and unrelenting, but the most disgusting part of this whole behind-the-scenes story mystery involves the Players Association leadership. They knew about the termination plans weeks before they happened, but they stayed quiet because they didn't want to rock the boat with league officials. The union president actually supported the termination because she thought Clark was getting too much attention compared to veteran players. Instead of fighting for better contracts for everyone, the union decided to tear down the one player who was raising the profile of women's basketball. Other star players were privately furious about the termination, but they were scared to speak out publicly. They knew that supporting Clark might make them targets for similar treatment. The fear and intimidation tactics worked exactly as intended. Let's talk about the absolutely insane meetings that led up to the termination decision. The Fever's board of directors held emergency sessions every week for 2 months trying to figure out how to handle Clark's success. They literally spent more time discussing how to get rid of their best player than they did planning for the playoffs. The final vote to terminate Clark's contract passed by a single vote. 3 board members voted against the termination because they understood it was financial suicide. 4 members voted in favor because they were terrified of league retaliation. If you're enjoying this content and want to see more breakdowns of the business side of sports, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The Clark situation is just the beginning of major changes coming to professional athletics.